Time for the 49ers Rush Podcast.
Coming in at number 40 on the 49ers roster countdowns, probably the most controversial pick, if not the kicker, than the tight end Cameron Latu, who was picked at one of the third-round comp picks, comes in number 40. Now, here's what's crazy. There were 5 rankings. Me and 4 of our executive producers went through and ranked 1 through 91. We have the extra man for biggest impact this year. And then we accumulated all those scores, right? So if you were voted first, you got 1 point. If you're voted 90th, you get 90 points. You add up all of Cameron Latu's points, it equaled an even 200, which is exactly where it should be at number 40. Now, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I want to be positive, and there's a lot of positives to Cameron Latu. However, so far through training camp and the preseason games about to take place, we'll see. It has not been great, but there are a lot of great things about him, and let's dive into some of those. Shout out to Josh, the 49ers guru, doing a lot of the back work on this episode. So, Latu, he wears jersey number 81, 6'4", 240. You like that. 32-inch arms, all right. 23 years old, 4'7", not the biggest speed guy. 166, not the biggest burst guy. 7.3 3-cone, not the biggest shake guy. 14 reps in the bench press. There are not a lot of elite third-round tight end traits that he shows. However, the one thing that this kid does at a rate that you could argue maybe the best on the team, and that's even including George Kittle, he gets separation on his routes all the freaking time. And, everybody's talking about drops that he has all the time, which I think he does lead the 49ers in drops through training camp, several per day a lot of times. A reason why he keeps getting those targets is because he's open all the damn time. And so everything about Cameron Latu is what he's going to be, not what he is. It's what he's going to be. And so that's why it's so frustrating because, man, you'll watch 81 out there and he's wide open considerably, consistently. The problem is once the ball gets to him, he doesn't do much with it. If he even does catch it, the body language is bad, all those things. But when we go through his journey and how he got to the NFL and how he got drafted, I think that it tells a good story. Went to high school, Olympus High School. He was a 4-star recruit, chose to go to Alabama. He was recruited as a defensive end. This is new, okay? Everything's new. He was rated as one of the top weak side defensive ends in the country. In the 2018 signing class, he was a unanimous 4-star recruit. He was the number 2 player coming out of Utah by 24/7 composite rankings, Rivals, ESPN. The dude's a baller. He was the 6th overall weak side defensive end. Now, chooses Alabama over Nebraska, Notre Dame, Oregon. I mean, he could have done anything. A year later, they switched him to tight end, and it took some time. There's no doubt about that. But once the transition happened, he just made plays. I mean, touchdowns. He broke the record for most touchdowns ever scored by a tight end in the University of Alabama. Now, you look at kind of, his past and what all he went through. He grew up in Chisholm, Minnesota, played football, basketball, track. He was all over the place. He has a fraternal twin brother named Nathan who plays football at Oklahoma State. That's a defensive end, so it's pedigree's there. I mean, it's going to be there. And it was a confusing pick, let's just be honest. I had a 6th-round grade on him. Niners took him in the 3rd. I actually had Braden Willis ranked higher than him. They were close, who the Niners got in the 7th round. There were a lot of players, by far the biggest reach in my opinion, that and the kicker pick. But we'll see. That's in the past now. They picked him number 38 overall in the 3rd round. So that's pick 38 of the 3rd round, not 38th overall. Now, let's look at his stats, okay? 56 receptions, 787 yards, 14.1 yards per catch. That's great. 12 touchdowns. That's unbelievable. Now, he did miss some of the workouts at the Combine because his hamstring wasn't good, but he played 716 snaps last year. Listen to these PFF scores. And again, it's frustrating. 58 overall grade, 60.6 pass, 70.9 pass blocking, which is a great score. However, such a small sample size. He was never asked to pass block. Once or twice a game tops. They released him on routes consistently. He's bad. He's a very bad blocker, or at least currently. Had a 50 one of the lowest scores you could possibly have. Run blocking, that's his biggest need. That's why it was such a head scratcher, because he doesn't really fit. He was the lowest graded blocking tight end of any draftable tight end this year in this draft class. But Shanahan and John Lynch kept going back to the table and saying the willingness and the want to is there. The aggressiveness is there. He's just got to be coached up and taught. We'll see. Because there's no way you're going to play on this team if you can't block. There's no way. And that's his issue. So he's got to accelerate those things. Through camp, he was probably one of my most watched players, and I was constantly shaking my head. Whether it was routes, whether it was blocking, pass block, it didn't matter. It just was bad. At one point I said, if I had to, somebody asked me who's having the worst camp, Cameron Latu was, boom, the answer there. Now, will that change? Again, you're not drafting this kid for what he can do now. You're drafting for what he can become. And that is the thing. His elite trait is space, right? It's space. You ask me what Travis Kelce's elite trait is. It's space. Can he be Travis Kelce? No, he can't. He can't be Travis Kelce as a blocker, tackle breaker, any of those things, and he's got bad hands. But he does generate space consistently. So Shanahan's basically saying, look, we have this guy that we can bring about slowly, and if he can keep this elite trait and work on the other things, we'll see what happens. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see. I think there's no way you cut a third-round pick this year. He's making the roster. The question then is, okay, you got George Kittle at 1. Then you've got, your vets, whether that's Charlie Warner, Dwelly, Fumagalli, who I thought had a good camp. And then you got Braden Willis, who there is no way they're going to cut Braden Willis with how he has played. But we'll see. Preseason games start soon. Maybe by the time you're listening to this episode, the first preseason is out there. And if that's the case, awesome. But this is a raw kid that you are trying to develop in a year or two. Tight end is the hardest position in the NFL to transition from college to the NFL. Cameron Latu just transitioned from defensive end to tight end. So you're talking about 2 hardcore adjustments in the span of 3 to 4 years. It's going to take time, but you got to constantly go back to separation and space on routes. That is key, and that is what he will bring. If he can bring up the other stuff, and if he can just get on par, blocking on par with drop passes, then we'll see. I think we got something special there. I like Cameron Latu. He's frustrating because I do think it was a huge reach, but that's okay. That doesn't mean it was the wrong pick. That's not what that means at all. It just means he's got to grow a lot in a very, very short time. So don't give up hope. And if he has a bad preseason, don't give up hope. This is a pick of the future, okay? This was a gather value late in this draft when you didn't have much draft capital at a position of need. We'll see what he can become. So for us, we'll just keep counting him down.